Dear brothers and sisters, the world is still trying to recover from the unfortunate tragedy that happened 2 weeks ago in New Zealand on this same Friday. While the world, most part of the world empathize with us, as Muslims, we can correlate to what happened because we go to Jummah prayers every week. We even go to other Jama'ah prayers to the masjid. So we can relate and exactly feel how it would feel if a gunman were to show up to a musalla and were to shoot down. So that naturally creates a fear in our minds. So what I want to focus today as part of my khutbah is what we should be not worrying about, but instead what should we really be worrying about. So let me touch on what we should not be worrying about, what we don't have to be worried about. What we don't have to be worried about is a gunman showing to our musallas wherever we are praying and then shooting us down. Alhamdulillah, Minnesota has good system, good people, so we are relatively safe here. So for that kind of an event to happen is a very rare chance. It's not a high possibility event at all. It's very rare chance. So that is something I would encourage you and I not to be worried about. Worrying about a gunman showing up now all of a sudden taking us down. That's very rare chance. I would strongly encourage us to not to deeply be worried about it. In fact, those who lost their lives, the event that happened 2 weeks ago, they are not losers. They have an opportunity to be considered as shaheed in the front of, in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they have an opportunity to cleanse their sins from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what more a person needs than that, right? So they are definitely not losers. So that's a worry that I want you and I to completely erase from our minds. But instead, I want you and I to take this an opportunity to remind ourselves about something that is going to happen for sure. And that event is our death. And what comes after death. That is meeting the day of judgment and then facing whatever the result of the day of judgment for us be. So that is what I want you and I to be worried about, to be planful about, to spend rest of our time, whatever we have left, to invest on that action, to fix something, to do something that helps us to be successful in the day of judgment. So the preparation for death, I would say it comes in two folds. One fold is preparing to leave this world, to leave the dunya. So you have to make sure that you make the necessary arrangements for your family, for your well-wishers before you leave the world. And two, you have to prepare yourselves. You have to lay the foundation strong enough that we are safe when we go to the day of judgment. That is, preparing to face the day of judgment. That is the second fold that I would say. So let me take the first one, preparing to leave the world. So what does it mean? First thing, I would encourage we all to have a will, a written will available for us, because death could come anytime, right? It is not dependent on the age at all. You may be 30 or younger than 30, or it doesn't matter. Yeah, death can come in at any age. There is no age criteria for death. So preparing a will is the first and foremost thing. So you don't want to leave your wealth and your belongings, including your children, with no planning in place. In fact, here in this country, if you don't have a will and your kids can be put in a foster home, if both parents are not living, your kids can be sent to a foster home, and there is no guarantee that the foster parents are going to be Muslims, or there is no guarantee that your kids will grow in an Islamic environment. So that's the very first and foremost thing I would encourage you and I to do, is writing a will, taking some time and writing the will. And will, you can find a lot of online websites that are available that you can get it done for free, or not free, very cheap. It's one of them is Willmaker from Nolo, and there is a legalzoom.com where you can find cheap lawyer help. You can also find local Muslim lawyers and get it done. It's not going to cost you very much. It's just for your effort. You have to put the effort to have that in place. And second, while we are preparing to leave the world, make sure you grow your children in the Islamic environment by teaching them the Islam. Why? Because Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has said that there are only very few things that will follow you even after you leave the dunya, that will continue to come towards you, and they are very few. And one of those things is the dua of your salihin children. If your children are grown in an Islamic environment as a good Muslim, and if they are asking dua for you, that is the best thing, one of the best things that will travel with you even after you die. So that dua, if they are going to do for you, and if they are practicing good Muslims, that will continue even after you die. So make sure you invest your time, you invest your availability for your children. So those are the two things I wanted to remind you and I as far as the preparation to leave the dunya. As far as the preparation to meet the day of judgment, the first thing I want to touch, this is a broader topic. I am only going to highlight a few important aspects here. The first and foremost I want to touch on is the focus itself. How focused are we in terms of our goal being the akhirah, right? As Muslims, we all should be very clear that our end goal, the eventual goal, should be Day of Judgment, facing the Day of Judgment, going to akhirah, going to Al-Jannah. Going to Al-Jannah should be our eventual goal. And how focused are we in that eventual goal? How frequently are we reminding ourselves of that eventual goal? That is the focus that I am talking about. In fact, even the non-Muslim researchers and scholars, they are saying that for you to live a stress-free life, you have to put things into long-range perspective. So they give you a quantifiable example. If you are worried about something, for example, then think that particular something that you are worried about. Just think from 5 years from now. 5 years from now, will I be worried about this particular thing that I am worried about today? Most of the time, no. Right? So that gives you a long-range perspective. And Steve Jobs, for example, he had a way of life in which he had mentioned this in his speech that he gave at Stanford. He had mentioned that one of the things that he does every day is in the morning when he wakes up, he goes to the mirror and then he asks a question for himself. What will I do if today happens to be the last day of my life? That's a question that he happened to ask every single day in his life. So with that practice, he said what happened was he tended to put things into perspective. So if he were to live today as a last day of life, then he wouldn't be worried about trivial things. He would just be focusing on what is important, making sure that to close the day on a good note. So his focus level would be totally different. So now these are two examples from this non-Muslim ideology. Now for us Muslims, we have even better long-range goal. That is not just thinking about the death, not just thinking from 5 years from now. We have even beyond that. How do we approach things? How do things matter to us from the perspective of akhirah? That's what the question that you should be asking about, right? If you are worried about something, for example, someone did hurt you, let's say, as an example, right? Clearly, you would be worried about it. You'll be thinking about that hurtful incident that just happened to you. That'll be going a lot in your mind, right? So when that happens, you just have to think from the perspective of akhirah, because in akhirah, you are not going to be thinking about that thing. Believe me, you are not going to be thinking about that hurtful thing. or no matter whatever it is. You are not even going to be thinking about your loved ones on the day of judgment. Although you will be standing by next to each other, you won't care about them and they won't care about you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Abasa says that فَإِذَا جَاءَتِ الصَّاخَّةُ, when the sur is blown, when the deafening noise, the sur denotes the end of the world. When the sur, the sound is blown, يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ مِنْ أَخِيهِ, that day a man will flee from his own brother. A man, his brother may be standing right next to him, he wouldn't care about his own brother. He would just flee from his own brother. He just cares about himself. وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ, and he, from his mother and his father, he would be just fleeing away from his own mother and his own father. He doesn't care about anyone. وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ, and from his wife and from his children. He doesn't care about anyone. The wife and the children that he cares a lot, this world, that he provides for in this world, he doesn't care about them. لِكُلِّ أَمْرٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنُ يُغْنِي. Each one of them that day will have enough concern to make him indifferent to the others. Each one is worried about themselves. Nafsi, nafsi. It's all about that self individual. Everyone is, they are also doing the same thing, by the way. They are not worried about you. That could be your mother, that could be your father, and that could be your brother. They don't care about you and you don't care about them. That is what the akhirah is going to be. وُجُوهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ مُسْفِرَةٌ. That day, some faces will be beaming. Why? ضَاحِكَةٌ مُسْتَبْشِرَةٌ. They are laughing and rejoicing because they are the ones who are given the good news of going to Al-Jannah. We want to be in that group. وَوْجُوهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَلَيْهَا غَبَرًا. And the other faces will be dust and stained. تَرْهَقُمَا قَطَرًا. Blackness will cover them. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَفَرَةُ الْفَجَرَةُ. Such that will be the rejections of the God and the doers of the iniquity. They are not only the rejectors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are also the people who have done iniquity. So that is the scene that I want to give you as an example from the day of judgment, because that day you are just worried about nafsi, nafsi. So that is the context I want you and I to put into things. When we think about things that we are going through in this dunya, how important this particular thing that I'm going through from the perspective of the day of judgment. How important is it from the day of akhirah? Because the more right focus that you have in this dunya, the more right things, the more quality things that you will be doing, that will eventually bring down your stress levels and eventually will help you to focus on the right things. In fact, if someone had to go back to my earlier example, if someone had to hurt you, you don't have to actually be the one that should be worried. It should be the person who did hurt you. They are the one who should be worried. Why? Because Rasulullah ﷺ gave the definition of a bankrupt person. So the bankrupt person, it's not the chapter 11. That's not that bankruptcy I'm talking about. It is the bankruptcy when it comes to the akhirah. So Rasulullah ﷺ said that a man would come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. Man comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he comes with a lot of good deeds from the prayers, from the fasting, from the zakah, from the all good ibadah that he has done. So he has accumulated a lot of good deeds, and now he is carrying those good deeds with him, and then he is going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he had offended one person. He has slandered another one. He had devoured others' wealth. He shed blood for some people and he beat that person. He had on the side, although he did a lot of ibadah and accumulated good deeds, on the side he was doing some bad behaviors. He was hurting other people in a sense. Now what happens is, each of these people would be given the good deeds of this from this wrongdoer. So this person initially came with a lot of good deeds. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take the good deeds from this person and distribute it to the people that were impacted by this person. And it doesn't stop there. And then it will come to a point that he is left with no more good deeds. Now Allah will not settle it until it's fully settled. Now Allah will take the sins of the people that were impacted by this person and then give it to this wrongdoer. So the sin, now he came with a lot of good deeds. At the end, he is walking out with bad deeds. And that will put him into the hellfire. So that is the real person who is bankrupt. This hadith is in Sahih Muslim. So that is the definition of the bankruptcy. So if someone were to hurt you, they were the one who should be worried. They should be worried about perhaps you not accepting their apology. So you actually don't have anything to lose. So you have to put things into perspective and think about the akhirah and approach it that way. So that is one thing, focus in the akhirah. And the other thing I want you and I to pay attention to is the ibadah itself. How sincere are we in our ibadah? While praying, are we focusing in our salah? Are we doing sunnah prayers? Are we spending time in doing nafil prayers? Are we doing some sunnah fasting? Mondays and Thursdays are sunnah fasting, or 3 white days in the Islamic month are sunnah fasting. Are we doing any of that? Occasionally at least. Are we getting up occasionally for tahajjud prayers and praying tahajjud prayers? So those are some of the things that we have to ask ourselves. How much focus are we giving to the ibadah? One other thing that we have to also pay attention to is not having a debt. So if you have a debt for anything, whether it's a home loan or car loan, whatever it is, make sure to close it out as soon as you can, because Rasulullah said that for a shaheed, all of the sins of the shaheed would be forgiven except the debt. Even for shaheed is a person who is sacrificing his life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for him, his sins are not forgiven. His sins are forgiven, but what is not forgiven is the debt. Even for shaheed, who sacrifices his own life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, debt is not forgiven. So put your best effort to close out the debt, because if you don't, then it's not guaranteed that it will be closed. If you don't expect to be closed, then at least make an arrangement in place, because death can come anytime, right? So make an arrangement in place so that if you happen to die, then someone will take care of it for you. For example, Jabir ibn Abdullah, his father Abdullah, he missed the battle of Badr. Then the battle of Uhud, before going to battle of Uhud, he wanted to fiercely take part in the battle of Uhud. So he expected to be a shaheed in the battle of Uhud. So he called upon his son Jabir, and he told his son, I am going to take part fiercely in this battle of Uhud, so I expect to die in this battle. But I have some debts. Please make sure that you close my debts out. Otherwise, I will not go to Jannah. So he paid attention to the aspect of closing out the debt. So he made an arrangement. So for us, in today's context, writing a will is probably the best arrangement that we can have in place to make sure that our debts are taken care of. The hadith I just mentioned is in Sahih Muslim, hadith number 1886. The last highlight I want to say, but not the least, is also paying attention to the donations. How much are we donating? Because donations will help us on the day of judgment as well. Rasulullah said that a man will come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, and then he will look to his right, he will see nothing but hellfire. He will look to his left, he will see nothing but hellfire. On that day, you save yourself at least by donating half a date. At least by donating half a date. So that day, each soul will think that I should have donated at least this much, at least half a date even. So we have to be paying attention to our level of donations as well. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. 2 weeks ago, the horrific incident, the tragedy happened in New Zealand, from which the world is still trying to recover. That incident gave us a lot of good lessons, which includes having the proper safety measures around the musalla and making sure safety is first. It's also natural for us to be worried about that kind of an incident happening to us. So the message that I want to convey to you and I today is we don't have to be constantly worried about that rare occasion to happen to us. If it happens, it happens. Nobody can stop it. We have to just take the security measures and just protect ourselves. But what we should be constantly thinking about and be worried is really facing the death, because that is going to happen for sure. How it's going to happen is different. It may happen in a number of different ways, but death is going to reach every one of us for sure. So we have to be prepared to face the death. So that preparation is in two folds. One is to preparing to leave the world. So making sure you do the right things for your family, for the people that are dependent on you. That includes writing a will. Make sure if you don't have a will written, make sure to write it and secure it. Make sure your loved ones know about it. And make sure you educate your children about Islam, grow them in the Islamic environment, because one day they will ask dua for you even after you die. That is going to continue with you. Not everything else will continue with you. So that is also another important measure to do as while we are living. As far as leaving the dunya to face the hereafter, there is a preparation that you have to do, because this time that we live in this dunya is the opportunity for us to prepare to meet the day of judgment, which is why we have to pay attention to our ibadah, making sure we focus on our ibadah, making sure we try to pray every salah as if it is the last salah in our life. Let's start doing that from today, from this salah itself, and making sure to spend some time in doing extra ibadah, such as praying sunnah prayers, nafil prayers, and so on. It's not enough if we do the extra ibadah. It is also important to protect what we save as far as the good deeds by not losing it to others on the day of judgment, because that is what is the definition of a bankrupt person, a person from whom the good deeds are taken away and given it to the people that were impacted by this person. So we don't want to be that person. So we have to protect our good deeds by not hurting others, by not doing injustice to others. Also important to pay attention to closing out our debts and to donate as much as we are able to. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase our iman. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give Jannah to the people that got killed in the tragedy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us in the straight path. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us mu'mins and die in the state of Muslims. Wa akhir dawana. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa aqimus salam.